Dear Sundar Sadhji, Mahamati Prannathji has arrived in Haridwar in the Kumbha mela. We talked about what Kumbha mela is, one of the biggest religious congregation that happens in India in 4 places: Haridwar, Nasik, Prayag, and Allahabad. So those 4 places where Kumbha mela happens at the banks of 4 rivers. And we told you the history of Kumbha mela, how it came about, the fight between the gods and the demons, and then they start churning the ocean, and the pot of nectar comes out of it, and the gods and the demons fight over it, and then 4 drops of nectar were believed to be dropped in those rivers. So what people believe is taking a dip in those rivers help them attain immortality, and that also cleans the sins, or the atonement of the soul. So Mahamati Prannathji is there in Haridwar in the year 1735, according to Hindu calendar, 1735. And Mahamati Prannathji is with more than 500 of his disciples. If you have ever been to Haridwar, there's a special place called Har Ki Pauri. That is where everyone takes a dip, and that is where they do the arati of River Ganga. And Mahamati Prannathji is seated on a little elevated place in a Brahma Chabutara. That's what it is called, because in that elevated place, he gives the discourse on the Brahma. The place, Brahma Chabutara. I went to Har Ki Pauri in 2015, I believe. And it is a magical place, a divine place. And hundreds of thousands of people come every day, take a dip in River Ganges. But the particular date, particular time when Kumbha Mela is organized, millions of people flock to these cities. So when Mahamati Prannathji arrives in Haridwar, as we stated, हरिद्वार की मेले में 4 संप्रदाय ताही सट दर्शनी भी तहाँ मिले दस नाम सन्यासी जाही. The acharyas, the leaders of 4 sects, Ramanus, Nimanus, Vishnusyam, and Madhavacharya. So these are all Vaishnava traditions that started from the south. So the leaders and scholars and the followers of these 4 sects were there in Haridwar. Dasanam Sannyasi were there. Dasanam Sannyasi, the term means the order of Swamis in the whole Hindu monastic tradition of single staff renunciation. And these Dasanam Sannyasis are generally associated with the Vedanta tradition and organized in present day form, the way it is now, by 8th century AD theologian and philosopher Adi Shankaracharya. So this Dasanam Sannyasis, the founder of Dasanam Sannyasi or Sannyas Dharma, was led or initiated by Adi Shankaracharya. There were the scholars of 6 philosophies, or 6 darshana. We call it Sata Darsani. Those leaders were there. The leaders of Mimamsa Darshan, Sankhya Darshan, Patanjal Darshan, Vedanta Darshan, Nyaya, and Vaishesika Darshan. All those leaders and followers of all those 6 philosophies of Hinduism were present there. 4 ashrama, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa ashram were there. 4 varna. So there were hundreds of thousands of religious leaders and scholars in Haridwar in the Kumbha Mela in 1735. So Mahamati Prannathji felt that since his first attempt to awaken, or at least reach out to Aurangzeb to remind him of the true glory of Islam, the essence of the Quran were not realized, Mahamati Prannathji gets to Haridwar. thinking that it would be a good opportunity to meet the Vedic scholars and talk about the essence of the Vedas. There were two traditions in India. One is called Acharya Parampara, the other one is called Santa Parampara. So Acharyas are the ones who had reviewed the Bhagavata, Vedanta, and Prananath Upanishad, like Brahma Sutras and Upanishads, who have reviewed them in Sanskrit, are known as Acharya. And the sect and traditions that start with them are called Acharya Paramparas. And they started from the south. So those four sects, Ramanuj, Nimanuj, Vishnusham, and Madhavacharya Sampradayas or sects, were the part of that Acharya tradition. Their text, their reviews are in Sanskrit, while the Santa Parampara started from the north, from northern India. In that Santa Parampara, their reviews, their writings are in Hindi, not in Sanskrit. Guru Nanak Dev, Dadu Dayal, Kabir, Mirabai, Tulsidas were among the leaders of that saint tradition, Santa Parampara. And Mahamati Prannathji also wrote what he did, revealed what he did in the language of Hindi. Sabko sugama janake kahungi Hindustana. For everybody's convenience, Mahamati Prannathji says, I'll speak in the language that everyone can understand, and that would be Hindi. So Mahamati Prannathji was one of the saints of this tradition, saint tradition, Santa Parampara. As Mahamati Prannathji arrives in Haridwar, as we talked about, while everyone is fighting over who should take the dip first in Ganga, in the river Ganges, Mahamati Prannathji is so engaged, addressing his audience, giving discourse on the glory of Paramdham, and he has no rush to take a dip in river Ganges. Because those awakened souls find themselves constantly taking a dip in the ocean of love. Those taking a dip in the love of the Lord, for them, taking a dip in worldly waters do not make such a sense. It is insignificant compared to getting engaged in the discussion of the Lord Supreme. As they see Mahamati Prannathji, Sabane dekha Sri Rajaku kini dila sakaur. As soon as these leaders of all these sects, Vedanta Darshana, Sata Darshana, four sects, Madhavacharya, Nimargacharya, Vallabhacharya, Vishnusham Sampradaya, all these sects, saw Prannathji. He has one set of dresses, one set of discussions, one set of bhajans. Seeing that, everyone comes and questions Prannathji. It feels that you are new to the city of Haridwar. It feels like your sect or your faith is completely different than ours, because everyone is coming with these different kind of costumes with tikaf all over their forehead with all these designs. Mahamati Prannathji is dressing up simply, simple dress, simple attire. So when they see Prannathji and his followers, a huge number of followers, 500 at that time. They're surprised and they ask Prannathji, can you introduce your faith? We want to listen to you about your faith, your teachings, your beliefs, your pilgrimage, the path of moksha in your faith, your guru, your spiritual master, the origination of your faith, who started this, which Veda you study, what type of mukti that you desire to attain, and things of that nature. And Mahamati Prannathji says, since your tradition, your sect have existed for a long time, I would rather like to hear from you first. The leaders of Ramanuja Sampradaya, one of the Vaishnava tradition, who proposed the idea of Visishta Dvaitvad, qualified non-dualism, the leaders came and started introducing their sect. They said that we read Samaveda. Our faith, our sect was started by Goddess Lakshmi. The lineage is Achyut, started with the sage Achyut, that is called Gotra. And they desire to attain, or the mukti, the moksha that they desire is called Samipya Mukti, residing in the closeness of Lord Vishnu, because all these four traditions, four Acharya traditions, are Vaishnava traditions. And in Vaishnava tradition, the Lord Supreme is Lord Vishnu. So they desire Samipya Mukti. They believe that the place of moksha, place of liberation is Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is made up of two letters, B and Kuntha. B meaning no, Kuntha meanings no deficiencies. There's the place where nothing is deficient. It is full of happiness. The souls enjoy the presence of Lord Vishnu. Everything is fulfilled. So they said, our mukti sthan, our place of moksha is Vaikuntha. They said, the place of pilgrimage is Kaveri river. God is Sri Narayana. Goddess is Kamala. Dham is Ranganath. And mantra chanted is Gayatri mantra and the Alak Niranjan. Alak meaning invisible, someone that cannot be seen. So they chant the Gayatri mantra and Alak Niranjan. He said, the Acharya of the Ramanuja sect said, there is a glory of Guru in that sect. They talk about the omnipresence of God, belief that God is everywhere, and there are infinite branches of God. Listening to the description of this sect, Ramanuja sect, Mahamati Prannathji asked the question, Suna paddhati Sri Rajane kiye prashna je yeha kaho panta agadajo tuma dhanya Ramanuja deha jaga mahe ki kahi tuma kahe beda jagat ko nash pinda brahmanda do pralay mein taba kaha jiva ko vash. Listening to the description or the paddhati of the Ramanuja sect, Mahamati Prannathji asked the question. It felt so good listening to the description of your faith, of your sect, but whatever you talked about, the place of pilgrimage, the place of moksha, the type of moksha that you guys talk about, is within the realm of 14 lokas. But if you look into the Vedas state that the 14 lokas would be gone in prakritik pralaya, natural dissolution, the cataclysm. If you look at Devi Bhagavata states that pralaya prakrituk jayas tatra drashta vasundhara jala prutani vishwani brahma vishnu sivadaya. In the natural cataclysm, when all the creators of 14 worlds, Astavaran, Vestijyoti Swarup, Gayatri, Sushmapad, and all those regions are submerged in water along with Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Mahesha. So when Vedas state that these 14 planes of this world would perish during Prakritik Pralaya, then where would the jivas attain moksha? You talk about Samipya Mukti in Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha falls within the realm of these 14 planes of universe. It's the 14th from bottom up, Vaikuntha Satalok. There are 7 ethereal worlds and 7 heavenly worlds that we talk about often. The 7 heavenly worlds being Mrityulok, Pitrilok, Swargalok, Maharlok, Janalok, Tapalok, Shatalok. And these 14 planes of the universe would be submerged in water and would be dissolved at the time of natural cataclysm or Prakritik Pralaya. Then where would the jivas attain moksha? Mahamati Prannathji asked the question, and the leaders or the acharyas of this tradition, the Ramanuja tradition, have no answer to Mahamati Prannathji's question. When we talked about Beetak, we talked about Kanjivata as well, right? When Prannathji, Maharaj Thakur and his brother Govardhan Thakur started going to the discourse of Satguru Shree Devchandraji Maharaj, his elder brother Shamal Dasi was not happy. One day he said, I would expel your guru and Gangaji Bhai from the town such that you would start taking your life seriously. And they were not happy. They chased their brother to beat him up. And finally, mom came to the rescue of Shamalji. And when they all agreed, when Father Kesav Thakur said, let's go to Kanjivata instead, because he was the guru of Satguru Shree Devchandraji, so why don't you go there? Prannathji and Govardhan Thakur agreed that they would go in condition that their questions are answered correctly by Kanjivata. So they went to Kanjivata with their father, Kesav Thakur, and then they started asking questions. How many elements are there? There are 5 elements. How many lokas are there? There are only 14 lokas. How many gunas, attributes are there? There are only 3 attributes, Sattva, Raja and Tama. And how many dissolutions or pralayas, cataclysms are there? There are only 4. Nitya, Naimittik, Prakritik and Atyantik Mahapralaya. There are 4 types of dissolutions explained in Vedic scriptures. And Mahamati Prannathji and his brother Govardhan Thakur asked Kanjivata, you said there are no more than 14 lokas, but the Vedic scriptures say that during the time of Prakritik Pralaya, natural dissolution, natural cataclysm, that all these 14 lokas perish. So where does God reside? Where do these souls go to? And he says, even Lord Brahmaji, from whom the Vedas originated, would not have answers to this question. So Mahamati Prannathji, when asked the leaders of Ramanuja sect, the acharyas, the saints, the scholars of Ramanuja sect, they do not have answer to his question. It might be a surprise that Mahamati Prannathji was in Haridwar for 4 months in these religious debates. He listens to their stories, their descriptions, and begins asking questions. It's just not that this one question that Mahamati Prannathji asked to the acharyas of Ramanuja sect, but in this Beetak, to make it short, to make it concise, Lal Dasi just puts forward one question that they could not find answer to. But like we finished this discussion about Ramanuja sect and this debate in probably 5-7 minutes, it probably lasted for days. Because Mahamati Prannathji was there in Haridwar for 4 months. And the longest debate he had was with the scholars of Vedanta, because they are among the most decorated, most highly intellectual scholars among other Vedic scholars. But it takes time for Mahamati Prannathji to have a debate and be victorious in each of these debates with the acharyas, the leaders of different sects. So when Mahamati Prannathji asked the acharyas of Ramanuja sect the same question, that where is your moksha? Because the places of moksha that you talk about fall within the realm of 14 lokas. But 14 lokas would perish. So where would souls, where would the jivas attain moksha? And the acharyas remained silent because they didn't have answer. Now, next, the acharyas, the leaders, the scholars of Nimanuja Sampradaya came forward to have a debate with Prannathji, who subscribed to the idea of dualistic non-dualism, Dvaita Dvaitavad. So he started giving the introduction of the Paddhati of Nimanuja sect. Sala is the home, is Mathura, Dharma Kshetra, Gokul, place of spiritual bliss is Vrindavan, Dham is Dwarika, river is Gomati, deity is Rukmani, Veda is Yurveda, mantra Harinam, started by Sanakadika, the 4 mental sons of Lord Brahmaji. Acharya Narada says Durvasa, God of worship is Garuda, the vehicle mount or Bahana of Lord Vishnu, king of birds, celestial deva with wings, divine eagle-like sunbird. So when all these descriptions of Nimanuja sect were given, put forth by the acharyas, scholars of Nimanuja sect, then Mahamati Prannathji asked the question to them. तब किए प्रश्न श्री राज जी, तुम में नहीं विचार, कछु कही जगत की परेगी, कछु जगत मंजार. Mahamati Prannathji asked them the question. You are not paying attention to what you are saying, what you believe. What you did, सारा असार को एक किए, मिले नहीं मतभेद, तुम बिना सतगुरु कहा करो, छूटे नहीं बाबा की. You guys talked some things about from this world, from the realm of the world, and some from the beyond. It does not match well with the descriptions that we find in the Vedas or the Vedic teachings. And I do not believe that without the grace of Satguru, an awakened spiritual master, you would be able to understand the distinction between the transient and the eternal. Immanence versus transcendence. You won't be able to distinguish. You will not be able to discriminate between the two. Because some of the places you are talking about are from the eternal realm, and some of them fall within the realm of this world. So you are all lost. As Mahamati Prannathji asked these questions and revealed the weaknesses in this philosophy, they remained silent as well. And the third sect, Vishnu Syam Sampradaya or Vallabha Sampradaya, the scholars of Vallabha sect came forward with the description of their sect. They propagate pure non-dualism, Shuddha Advaitvad, and the scholars introduced their sect. They chant the mantra of Tulasi, Dharmashala is Vishnu Kanchi, Tirtha is Markandeya, Dham is Purushottam, Acharya Vamadev, deity is Lakshmi. They read the Atharva Veda, the fourth and the last Veda, mantra Harinam. They believe that the sect was started by Lord Shiva. And Mukti, they believe that with their faith in Lord Vishnu, they will receive the Sayujya Mukti. Sayujya Mukti is in the heart of Lord Vishnu. There are 4 types of Mukti according to Vaishnava tradition. Sarupya, Sayujya, Samipya, and I forgot the other one. But there are 4 types of Mukti in Vaikuntha. So listening to the description of Vishnu Syam Sampradaya or Vallabha Sampradaya, Mahamati Prannathji asked the question, तुम तो यह जग में कही ये कहे वचन श्रीराज वेद पुराण जगत ना सकहे रहे कहाँ संप्रदाय बाज. Mahamati Prannathji put forward the same idea again. The places that you talk about, Purushottam-pur, Dharmasala, Moksha and all that, you're talking about Vaikuntha, Satyaloka. It falls within the realm of 14 lokas, perishable place. It is not eternal. And Vedas, the Puranas say that these realms eventually perish in dissolution. So at that time, where would soul attain moksha? Because if it is all gone, then soul did not attain moksha. So again, Mahamati Prannathji, upon asking this question, sought the response from the acharyas of Vallabhacharya tradition, and they could not come up with a satisfying answer. Dear Chandrashaji, these are all detailed descriptions, and if we go into details of each of these sects, it would be a little too time consuming. But one thing to keep in mind here, why the acharyas, why the scholars of all these faiths were unable to answer Mahamati Prannathji was the fact that, as we state all the time in the teachings of Mahamati Prannathji, ete dina trilokame bhuti buddha shupanna. All the Vedic understanding, all the understanding of the Upanishads are the attempt of humanity to understand God from the realm of dream. As we all know that the world is nothing but the dream of Akshara Brahma, who creates and destroys infinite numbers of universe, infinite number of universes in a blink of an eye. We associated that with how we create infinite number of universes in our imagination. Right? I've got to go to a market once the discourse is over. Now I'm imagining something. The world is already created. I find myself in an Indian store, a grocery store, buying stuffs. So we imagine things, and the world of imaginations are created simultaneously. Similarly, Akshara Brahma, in a blink of an eye, creates so many universes, and they exist in reality. Our imaginations are pure imaginations. However, whatever Akshara Brahma imagines turns into reality. That is why he creates, and imaginations can be promptly set aside, can be easily forgotten, can be easily destroyed. Oh no, I don't want to go to the market today. And your imagination is over. You find yourself somewhere else. In a similar way, Akshara Brahma creates multitudes of universes in a fraction of a second. So, as humanity tries to understand God, the glory of God, the leelas of God, they cannot figure it out. Because when we are in a state of dream, when we are in a state of forgetfulness, we forget our eternal reality. When I go to sleep and when I find myself in a dream, I do forget everything about me. I do not have the identity of my reality. I find myself running from my simple troubles in my dream. I'm chased by a tiger. I find myself in a jungle. I find myself crossing the river and the river drowning me or things of that nature. And it feels that it is real. And in the state of dream, I'm trying to find God, understand God. And with that illusioned mind, forgetful mind, it is obvious that I cannot find God, understand God. So all these attempts from all these religious scholars and saints were futile, were not successful in explaining the name, form, leelas, and the abode of the Lord Supreme. As such, Mahamati Prannathji, upon forwarding these questions to the acharyas of this sect, they are speechless. They do not have any answers. Because that is all that world knows. There are 14 lokas, 5 elements, 3 attributes, and 4 types of dissolutions. And for them, nothing exists beyond them. But these Vedic scriptures state right away that in these dissolutions, in Prakritik Pralay, in Atmantic Mahapralay, everything perishes. So if everything perishes, then what remains is something that they are unaware of. Because for them, nothing exists beyond the realm of 14 lokas. But if we look into the description of Virat, the theme of Mahamati Prannathji that describes everything from Patal, the lowest of the ethereal world, all the way to the supreme heaven called Paramdham, and everything in between. There are so many things in between. Beyond 14 lokas is Astavaran. Beyond Astavaran is Jyoti Swarup, Gayatri, Mohatattva, Ichha Sakti, Narayan, Akshar Brahma's 4 matrix of mind, Abhyakrit Brahma, Sabalek Brahma, Keval Brahma, Satsuru Brahma, Akshara Brahma, and beyond Akshara Brahma is Aksharatit Brahma, Lord Sri Krishna in his effulgent form, ever radiating form. And nobody is aware of the world that is beyond the perishable one. It says, these are highly scholarly people. These are the acharyas who have done the reviews of this great scholarly piece of art, Vedic scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads. Yet, when Mahamati Prannathji asked him, You're only talking about the realm of this transience. They do not have any answer. So Mahamati Prannathji asked these questions. They do not have answered. Then finally the scholar from Madhavacharya Sampradaya comes forward that promotes the idea of dualism. These isms are a part of human attempt to understand the relationship between the Lord and a jiva, or the soul. So, according to Madhavacharya Sampradaya, the relationship between the soul and God is too distinct. There are two distinct ideas, two distinct terms. They have no similarities in between them. So Madhavacharya scholars came forward to Mahamati Prannathji introducing their sect. They say that they chant the mantra of Tulasi, Dharmashala is Avantika, Dham is Badrinath, Acharya is Lord Brahmaji, deity is Goddess Savitri, mantra Vishnu Hansarupa, and believe that this sect was started by Lord Brahmaji. Mukti is Salokya Mukti. Salokya Mukti is the moksha, the liberation that you attain in the Dham of Vaikuntha, in the Dham of Lord Vishnu, in the abode of Lord Vishnu. So, as Madhavacharya leaders, the Acharyas of Madhavacharya sect came forward with this description, their paddhati. Then Mahamati Prannathji asked the same question. Taba kahe prasna Sri Rajane, ye to kahi jagamai. What you are talking about is within the realm of this world. And what Mahamati Prannathji says is kahe Veda Jagata Bharama. But the Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sam Veda, Atharva Veda, one of the most renowned, authentic piece of Vedic religious tradition, the Vedas say that the world is nothing but illusion. If it is illusion, if it is untrue, then taba mukti kahisho kahi. So where would jivas attain moksha, the salvation? So the scholars of Madhavacharya sect, again, do not have answers to Mahamati Prannathji's question. Kahe Veda Jagat Varamahe Taba Mukti Kahi So Kahi. They do not have answers to these questions. So all these four Acharya traditions fail to appropriately answer, to adequately answer, to satisfy Mahamati Prannathji. When Mahamati Prannathji asked the question, where would souls attain moksha? Because these places of moksha that you talk about are not eternal. If these places, Vaikuntha is not eternal, if Vaikuntha is not eternal, then how is the salvation in Vaikuntha considered eternal? They do not have any answer. Then the Dasanam Sannyasi came. The Sannyas Mat, the group of people who believed in asceticism, led by 8th century theologian and philosopher Sankaracharya, who was a sannyasi. They established 4 temples across India, established Badrinath, Joshi Mat in Badrinath. In Dwarika, established Sarada Mat. In West India, in South India, he established Sringeri Mat. And in the Eastern India, near Jagannath Puri, he established Govardhan Mat. And those mats, those places, those temples were considered the 4 pillars that would be able to withstand any attack against Hinduism and Hindu tradition. And all these much propagated the idea of Advaitism. So according to Advaitism, there is one Brahma, and what is not Brahma is all illusion or Maya. Brahma is eternal, Sanatan, and the only truth. And that Brahma that Shankaracharya promoted was Govinda. So if you look into the teachings of Shankaracharya, he sings the glory of Govinda. One of the scriptures that he revealed was Vaja Govindam. So the idea of sannyas dharma was spreading across India and to the world. And in this sannyas dharma, there are 10 types of sannyasis: tirtha, ashram, ban, aranya, giri, parvat, sagar, puri, bharati, evam, and saraswati. And these sannyasma, this renunciate faith, had different acharyas. And these Dasanam sannyasis came forward with their concept of God and their place of moksha to Mahamati Prannathji. As Mahamati Prannathji listens to their description of their belief, again Mahamati Prannathji asked them, we are only talking about Vaikuntha, you are only talking about these 14 planes of this universe. We are not going beyond the perishable. You are not talking about the place of eternality. So they do not have the answer to the question. Because Prannathji is the awakened soul. He has the understanding of the beyond. He has the understanding of the awakened state. While he is in this world, he is also cognizant of what lies beyond this world. And none of the others have that understanding. These Dasanam sannyasis talk about the omnipresence of God. Mahamati Prannathji says the same thing. If God is omnipresent, then why did God send these scriptures? Why is there so much suffering in the world and all these concepts, and they do not have answers to the questions? Mahamati Prannathji is becoming victorious against each of these religious traditions. Finally, the leaders of 6 philosophies, Mimamsa, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Vedanta, Patanjal, the acharyas, the leaders of these 6 philosophies, come forward and introduce what they believe in. So going into the extreme detail of this would take a long time, so we don't probably want to do that, because all these descriptions of God, all this belief system in Hinduism, they are too detailed oriented. So we're going a little faster in explaining this. So on tomorrow's discourse, we'll talk about what the scholars of Vedanta say about God, what the scholars of Vaisheshika philosophy say, Mimamsa, Nyaya, Patanjal, their belief about God, the place of their moksha or salvation, and those concepts would be elaborated tomorrow. As we already said, as Mahamati Prannathji became victorious against each of these religious scholars of different religious traditions, Mahamati Prannathji is declared the Niskalanka Buddha Avatar, the incarnation of awakened consciousness that was prophesied in the Vedic scriptures to come in this world and spread the knowledge of the beyond and the transcendence. So that would be the topic for tomorrow's discourse. As these acharyas, these saints and scholars introduce their faith, they have the basis of the Vedas. So when they all describe their faith, they ask Prannathji to give the references of the Vedas. When Mahamati Prannathji gives the description of Sri Krishna Pranami faith Nijananda sect, they want the references from the Vedas. Yes, Mahamati Prannathji introduced the faith. Satguru Brahma Nanda he Sutra he Akshara Rupa Sikha Sadapina Se Pare Chetana Chidajo Anupa. As Mahamati Prannathji introduced the Paddhati of Nijananda sect, they want the proof in the Vedas, such that they can believe in what he says. So let me remind you, the philosophy of Mahamati Prannathji has the basis of the Vedas. The references of what Tartam says is found in the Vedic scriptures. So the faith of Tartam did not come just out of the blue. It has the Vedic basis. It has the basis of the Abrahamic text as well. The concepts that Mahamati Prannathji puts forward have some references in other scriptures such that it would be authentic, such that it is verifiable. Dear Sundar Saji, we'll get into more details tomorrow in regards to Mahamati Prannathji's descriptions and introduction of Nijanandiya Paddhati. So the faith that we hold so true is called Sri Krishna Pranami faith, and the sect is called Nijananda. We'll get into details of why it is called Nijananda. And the concept that Mahamati Prannathji puts forward is called Solila Advaitism. What is our Solila? We'll talk about that tomorrow as well. So thank you all so much, Sundar Saji, for attending the discourse today.